The corpse that won a war. The secret of Operation Mincemeat. What if I told you that one dead man changed the course of World War II, and no one even knew his name? This is not fiction. It happened, and it fooled Hitler himself. If you're into true stories that sound too wild to be real, then prepare yourself for one of the most audacious deception operations in military history. This is the mind-blowing secret of Operation Mincemeat, where British intelligence turned a homeless corpse into a war hero who saved thousands of lives without firing a single shot. By 1943, the Allies faced a deadly puzzle. They needed to invade Europe, and Sicily was the obvious target. So obvious that even amateur strategists could see it coming. German intelligence had reached the same conclusion, and Nazi forces were pouring resources into fortifying the island. Field Marshal Kesselring had transformed Sicily into a fortress with coastal batteries, machine gun nests, and thousands of seasoned troops positioned at every landing site. The mathematics were brutal. Intelligence estimates suggested a direct assault on heavily defended Sicily could result in catastrophic casualties, potentially derailing the entire European campaign. The element of surprise seemed impossible when the target was so painfully obvious. Every war room in London knew that a frontal assault on Sicily would be a bloodbath. This is where British intelligence proposed something so audacious it bordered on insanity. They would plant fake classified documents on a corpse and float it ashore, where German intelligence could find it. The dead man would carry secrets so convincing that they would redirect German forces away from Sicily toward a completely different target. It was psychological warfare using death itself as a weapon. The plan was born from desperation and genius in equal measure. If they couldn't hide their intentions, they would broadcast false ones so convincingly that the enemy would redeploy their entire defensive strategy based on a lie. The success of Operation Mincemeat depended on finding the right body. After searching London morgues, they found Glyndwr Michael, a homeless man who had died from rat poison. Michael was perfect because he was nobody. No family, no friends, no connections who might ask questions. In death, he would become more important than he had ever been in life. But finding the body was only the beginning. The transformation into Major William Martin of the Royal Marines required obsessive attention to detail that would make Hollywood prop masters look amateur. German investigators would examine every thread, every piece of paper with microscopic intensity. They dressed the corpse in a perfectly tailored uniform with appropriate wear patterns, not too new, not too old, with the exact right amount of use that a real officer would have. The real artistry lay in creating Martin's personal life through carefully selected pocket contents. This wasn't just about military credentials. It was about creating a human being so authentic that enemy intelligence would never question his existence. They added a photograph of a beautiful woman as his fictional, actually, a clerk from British intelligence who volunteered for the role. Movie ticket stubs from recent London films showed his entertainment preferences. Bank receipts revealed appropriate spending patterns for an officer of his rank, bills from his club, receipts from purchases, even lint in his pockets. Every detail was calculated to withstand the most thorough investigation. But the masterpiece was the love letter, written in feminine handwriting by another intelligence operative. This letter was a work of psychological manipulation that would make modern marketers jealous. It was filled with intimate details, shared memories of dates that never happened, inside jokes between lovers who had never met, and future wedding plans that would never materialize. The letter was so convincing, so emotionally authentic, that German analysts would conclude such personal, emotional content could never be artificially created. The most crucial element was the briefcase handcuffed to his wrist, containing classified documents, revealing that the Allied invasion would target Greece and Sardinia rather than Sicily. These weren't just any fake documents. They were crafted with authentic military stationery, correct typewriter fonts, and perfect forgeries of real officials' signatures. The intelligence was sophisticated enough to seem genuine but not so detailed as to raise suspicion. The documents suggested Greece as the primary target, with Sardinia as a secondary objective, making Sicily appear to be nothing more than a diversionary feint. On April 30th, 1943, Major William Martin's body washed ashore near Huelva, Spain. Spanish authorities, maintaining official neutrality while secretly cooperating with German intelligence, allowed Nazi agents to examine and photograph everything before officially returning the remains to Britain. German intelligence officers conducted the most thorough analysis of their careers. They studied the uniform under magnification, analyzed paper and ink with chemical tests, investigated every personal effect with forensic precision. The love letter received particular attention. They found its emotional authenticity completely convincing, reasoning that such intimate content would be impossible to fabricate. Who would think to include arguments about wedding preparations or jokes about a mother-in-law's cooking habits? The classified documents passed every test. Correct paper watermarks, matching fonts, authentic signatures, and logical strategic content. The intelligence made perfect sense from a military perspective. Greece and Sardinia offered strategic advantages while avoiding the obvious Sicily target. The documents even included believable concerns about secrecy and timing that matched real Allied communication patterns. Within weeks, the documents reached Hitler himself through the German intelligence chain. The Führer, convinced by his intelligence service's thorough analysis, ordered immediate redeployment of German forces away from Sicily toward Greece and Sardinia. Entire divisions of seasoned troops, artillery, batteries, and defensive installations were relocated based on intelligence from a dead homeless man who had never fired a shot in anger. The redeployment was massive. Panzer divisions rolled toward Greece. Coastal artillery was shipped to Sardinia. Air squadrons were repositioned. The fortress that Sicily had become was systematically dismantled, its defenses scattered across the Mediterranean based on the lies carried by a corpse. On July 9, 1943, over 160,000 Allied troops launched Operation Husky, storming Sicily's beaches. The German and Italian defenses had been catastrophically weakened by the redeployments, triggered by Major Martin's fake intelligence. Coastal batteries that should have devastated landing craft had been moved to Greece. Infantry divisions that had prepared defensive positions were now in Sardinia. The elaborate fortress Sicily had become was left undermanned and under-equipped. Allied forces encountered fierce, manageable resistance instead of the catastrophic defensive fire that intelligence had predicted. Beach landings, expected to cost thousands of lives, proceeded with far lower casualties than anyone had dared hope. The element of surprise had been restored through a dead man's deception. The success had immediate consequences beyond Sicily. The rapid Allied advance contributed to Mussolini's government collapse and Italy's surrender. More importantly, it validated strategic deception as more valuable than conventional military force, saving thousands of lives through misdirection rather than overwhelming firepower. Operation Mincemeat was so successful that British intelligence imposed extraordinary secrecy to protect the techniques for future use. Everyone involved was bound by official secrets acts with severe criminal penalties. The operation remained classified at levels exceeding even the most sensitive military secrets. The corpse was buried in Spain under the false identity, with a gravestone reading William Martin and no indication of the deception. For over 50 years, the true identity remained one of Britain's most closely guarded secrets. The first public acknowledgement came in 1953, with a man who never was. a carefully sanitized account that revealed the basic story while omitting crucial details about methods and personnel. It wasn't until 1996, 50 years later, British authorities finally revealed that Major William Martin had been Glindwer Michael, a homeless man who died from rat poison in London. Even then, many operational details remained classified, and some participants took their secrets to the grave. Operation Mincemeat has become a foundational case study in military academies worldwide, demonstrating that strategic deception can achieve what conventional force cannot. The techniques developed, creating comprehensive false identities, planting disinformation that withstands scrutiny, exploiting enemy assumptions, have influenced everything from Cold War espionage to contemporary cybersecurity. The operation's ethical implications continued generating discussion. It required using a dead man's body without consent and deliberately misleading enemies in ways that resulted in their deaths. Yet most analysts conclude these actions were justified by the wartime context and lives saved through reduced casualties. The story of Glindwer Michael has become a powerful symbol of how individuals can have historical impact in ways they never intended. Michael died alone and forgotten, with no indication his death would contribute to one of World War II's most important operations. His posthumous service as a fictional officer saved thousands of lives and helped change history's course, even though he never knew about his role. Operation Mincemeat proves that the most powerful weapons aren't always the most obvious ones. Sometimes the greatest victories come not from superior firepower, but from superior intelligence and the ability to make enemies believe what you want them to believe. In the case of Major William Martin, the man who never lived saved thousands who would have died, accomplishing through death what he never could have achieved in life. A homeless man became a war hero. A corpse fooled Hitler, and one of the most audacious deceptions in history changed the course of World War II. That's the incredible true story of Operation Mincemeat, when death itself became the ultimate weapon. He was a nobody, but in death he became a war hero, the corpse that won a war. Hit like, subscribe, and follow Utak Diaries, because the truth is always stranger than fiction.